Shabbat Shalom, happy Sabbath. This morning we're again thankful that Yah has been good to us. And so we have come this morning to look at his word and to bring him glory by way of praise and honor. We want to look at the pauperization of wealth. And we want to look at it in the context of the rich young ruler. When we talk about the pauperization of wealth, we're dealing with extreme poverty. We're dealing with destitution, where people are experiencing economic hardship, and we're going to be using the word of Yah to frame that experience. So as I think of the subject, I think of the world in which we live, and even more specifically, the country in which we live. And I think of it this way. Let's assume that someone had asked you to write something regarding the things that are happening in our world, an extract that may explain the things that are happening where you live. What would you write? What subject would you write on? What would you say that would be fitting to tell people what is happening? Perhaps you will write about the way marriage is in the land. Perhaps you would talk about migration. You would speak about morality. But I've thought about it this way, and perhaps this is how I would write it. And it came to pass that as of August 2024, the total amount of student loan debts in United States totaled $1.753 trillion, with 1.620 trillion, that being federal student loan. And the present President Biden had earlier seen the plight of vulnerable students, many of which are fraught with emotions and anguished by their experience, having been placed on the anvil of their economic circumstances. They, being on that anvil, like a sledgehammer, poverty had beaten them into a fretful shape of distress, bent out of alignment, the subluxation of which injured their economic ligaments. And the president saw that and wanted to do something about it. But then the matter was taken to the Supreme Court, and by a vote of 6-3, they decided to stop that situation so that the president could not forgive the debt owed by the students of America. Now, as I look at that in the context of America's wealth, the greatest nation on earth that has wealth untold, its GDP is $27 trillion. $27 trillion. In America, we have 759 billionaires. In California alone, we have 197 billionaires. New York, 139 billionaires. In Texas, 73 billionaires. In Florida, here, 78 billionaires. Illinois, 23 billionaires. And the list goes on. Billionaires all over the place. California, which is just a state, had it been a country on its own, it would have had the 5th largest economy in the whole world, just a state. It has a GDP of nearly $4 trillion. And so that's the context that we're talking about, the pauperization of wealth. How wealth is not used appropriately, or the issuing of it. Just a few people owns the most. And so we want to look at that this morning because it seemed unjust. It seemed unreal. And so we have watched this experience, this provocative economic extremity, wherein the first world countries, like a heavyweight boxer, they have pummeled the third world countries into submission of poverty. I call it pugilistic economy. And so these Western prize fighters in the ring of opulence, refereed by the governments of avarice, sponsored by the World Bank and the IMF. Thus, poverty is located in the very center of our own cosmos. That is our cosmos of needs, creating a frown, anxiety, distress because of the inequities that it creates among the people. The Supreme Court says you cannot forgive the debt of the people. And so this morning I want you to turn with me to the book of Mark, Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10, and we will look at verse 17 reading on. And the word says, "And as he was setting out on the way, one came running and knelt before him and asked him, 'Good teacher, what shall I do to inherit everlasting life?'" It's a fair question. It's a serious question. It's a rich man. And he came and he showed respect. He showed obeisance. He knelt down at a time when many would not do that to the Messiah. He knelt. And you get the impression here that he was serious about the question that he asked. What must I do? Because the impression here, the inference here, he has to do something to get eternal life. And so we ask the question, good teacher, good rabbi. Now, in those days, you must realize that the culture was such that anyone who was a rabbi, it was an esteemed position. It was well valued. And there was a custom where when the elders, the father, walked into the house, the children would stand up in respect of the father, with one exception. If any of those boys became a rabbi and they walked into the house, the father himself would stand up to show respect to his son because they realized how important it was to be a teacher, a rabbi in that time. And so this man ran and he came to the teacher and he wanted to know how he can have it everlasting life. And hear how he addresses the Messiah. Good teacher. And Yeshua said, why do you call me good when you know there is only one that is good? Why do you do that? Because you see, good is defined by Yah's character. That is exemplified in the commandments, the transcript of his character. That's what good is. Often, we watch someone gives something. We're talking about civil virtues, where a person gives you something, and you say, that's a good man. That's a good woman. But we read Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, Paul said, even if I give my body to be burned, and I give my goods to the poor, and if I have not love, then I have not given anything. The point here that the apostle wants us to know is this. Goodness is determined by the condition of your heart at the time of giving. That's why the word said, he loves a cheerful giver. And so those billionaires who sometimes give much to charity only to get a tax write-off, you ask yourself, how much did they really give? And so this man here comes to the Messiah and he wants to know. In fact, Dr. King says this was not a universal diagnosis. He's not saying this to all people, but he was performing individual surgery on this man. And so Yeshua says, you know the commandments. Do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not rob, respect your father and your mother. Notice what Yeshua has done. He's quoting, obviously, from the Ten Commandments. We know the first four deals with the relationship you have with Yah. Thou shalt have no other Yah but me. So the first, and the last six is dealing with your neighbor. And what he is really saying, in essence, to the rich young ruler here, do you have a neighbor? Do you have a neighbor? Because all these that he mentioned refers to his relationship with his neighbor. You know the commandments. Go then and sell all that you have and give to the poor. Now, the Scottish economist Adam Smith in 1776 wrote is The Wealth of the Nation, and he was saying that it ought to be a free market enterprise, whereas there is minimal intervention from the government. It is market forces that must decide the wealth of the nation, and it then trickles down. And there have been people waiting for years, and it never trickled down. The wealth of the nation, or the distribution of the wealth, never reaches certain people. And the students of America are crying out. The president says, I will help. And the Supreme Court says, no, you can't help. And so this rich young ruler, he was told, share what you have with your neighbor, Mr. Uncle Sam. Let's call him Uncle Sam. Share what you have. And the word said that he went away. How? He was sorrowful. He went to receive something. Like so many, we like to stretch our hands out to receive. But when it's time to give, we have a clenched fist. So it was with him. He said to Yeshua, I have watched these, I have kept all these commandments from my youth. And the word said Yeshua looked at him, loved him. He loved him and said to him, one matter you lack. Go sell all you possess and give to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven, and come follow me, taking up the stake. Some Bible says take up the cross, but it's really not a cross. It's the patibulum, the cross beam that he was carrying on the shoulder, and that's symbolic of the weight. Go take up your own patibulum and put on your shoulder and follow me. And he went away angry. And his Talmudim, the taught ones, were astonished at his words, and Yeshua responding said to them again, children, how hard it is for those who do what? Trust in riches to enter into the reign of Elohim, into the kingdom of Elohim. It is easier for a camel to enter through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the reign of Elohim, the kingdom of heaven. Now, a lot of people have misunderstood this statement here, and some believe it is talking about a sewing needle and a thread going through. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about a small gate that was in Jerusalem, that when the merchants came with their camel, they had to take the load off. Where I come from, the ampas. They had to take them off so that the camel would have to stoop to go through the eye of a needle. That's the gate. That's what he's talking about. It is easier for the camel with its heavy load to go through that gate than for a rich man to go through the gates to the kingdom. That's what he's dealing with. But Western minds that don't get this are thinking of a sewing needle. That's not what he's dealing with. And that's why when he made the temple, he told Moses that make one gate. He told Noah, make one gate, one door in the heart. Because the broad way is not the way, but it's that narrow way where the camel has to stoop to get through. And the man did not want to do that. And America clearly does not want to do that. So the thing is this, that people don't like to share their wealth. They don't like to give. And the ones who are currently trying to stop the president helping are the very billionaires and the millionaires who themselves are seeking tax cuts for their own companies and for their personal uses. It's just strange, ironic that this would happen. So come with me to the book of Yehezqel, the book of Yehezqel. And we will read a few verses here. Yehezqel chapter 16. And the word says that this, but let's read verse 38 and read on. And I shall judge you with judgment of adulteresses and shredders of blood, and I shall bring on you the blood of wrath and jealousy, and I shall give you into the hand as they shall throw your heart's place down, and they shall break down your high places, and they shall strip you of your garments, and they shall take your splendid ornaments, and leave you naked and bare. Yah says, I'm going to do this to you. Why is he going to do this? Why is he speaking like this? Because in verse 49, he wants you to know the context of it. He says, behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, like America, and abundance of idleness was in her and her daughters, neither did she strengthen the end of the poor and the needy. And they were haughty and committed abomination before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw good. Neither hath Samaria committed half of thy sins, but thou hast multiplied thine abominations more than they, and hast justified thy sisters in all thine abomination which thou hast done. Which of us would deny that America has multiplied the sins of Sodom? Which of us? And have sent a stench to Yah's nostrils. And it's not helping the poor or the needy. This was the iniquity, the word says, of Sodom. Yah is saying, because these conditions existed back then in Sodom, I destroyed it. People were in need. And you had the wealth. You are the greatest nation on earth with a GDP of 27 trillion. I mean 27 with 12 zeros. The nearest nation to that is China with 17 trillion. And by the way, China has 814 billion years, more than America. That's the kind of wealth that we're living among people who are wealthy. Wealthy people. And so Yah is looking on and see this pauperization of his wealth. Because it's his money. It is money. But they are behaving, it says, notice what Yeshua said about the man. He had great possessions. Possessions is 9/10 of the law, but it's not ownership. Because the word says in Psalm 24 that the earth is Yah and the fullness thereof, and all that is in it belongs to Yah. So we are only caretakers of Yah's estate. But although Yah had blessed this man, even as Yah has blessed America with billionaires, they're saying we're not going to help her. In fact, right now we have a number of senators putting a bill together to stop the president helping. They're trying to stop the president helping. And I wonder, that what would they have done had they been in that company that day when Yeshua sat with the people and the people became hungry, and all they had was a little boy who had brought his lunch because no one else had brought anything, and they took his loaves and his fishes. And did you hear the disciples saying, communism? Did you hear that? He took the bread and the fishes, blessed them, and fed all the people with it. And so the conditions exist in America among the billionaires for someone to take their bread and to feed all the other nation, but they are saying, we are not going to share it. You rich young rulers, you misers, you Scrooges. Ebenezer, that's what they're saying. This one has 100 billion, and another has 200 billion, and another has 50 billion. And they're saying, we're not going to help. We are not going to help. And the word says, they went away sorrowfully. Because a president sees the plight of his people and he wants to help. This is not about politics. We are not here dealing with who is a Democrat or who is a conservative. That's not the issue here. The issue here, there is a need. Can you help? The students are up to their necks with this financial yoke. And you are in the House, in Parliament, and you're behaving like knaves, certified knaves, denying the people. You already owe $35 trillion. And so if you were to forgive the loan, it would only be another $1.7 trillion. You don't mind that, or you do mind that, but you don't mind making some more bombs, do you? You don't mind having a new yacht, do you? You don't mind that. Selfishness. And so the word says, even as Yah spoke to this rich young ruler, he speaks to America today. They went away. In fact, they went to the Supreme Court angry. And he says, that which he spoke to this rich young ruler, he speaks to America. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for these rich billionaires to enter into the kingdom of Yah. Why? Because they are selfish. They want the wealth for themselves. They want all the tax breaks for themselves, but they don't want to help you. And it sends a stench to Yah's nostril. It does. And so we must understand that Yah is not pleased with what is happening in this country. He's not pleased at all. And so you notice the man's posture. He knelt. His knees were bent, but his heart was not bowed. He came to receive. Good master. So if I am good, surely that which comes from my mouth, my advice must be good. Why are you calling me good? Why? Do you think that I am Yah because Only he is good, so you know something about me. So if you know something about me, obey me. Sell all that you have and give to the poor. And the word says that he was not pleased. He went to his local bank and told the teller to stop all checks. Don't send anything out. But we have enough evidence in the word to keep us active, at least to keep our minds active, because the word says there was a man, and you better come there with me, in the book of Luke chapter 16, and here it is called the rich man and Lazarus. Let's bring it home closer. Let's make it existentially relevant to the times in which we live. Let's call it the billionaires and the students of America. The word says, there was a certain man who was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar, students, named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. The dogs licked the man's sores. Wow. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried away by the angel. By the whom? The angels into Abraham's bosom. And the rich man died and was buried. He didn't hear me. The word says the beggar died and was taken by the angels. But Dr. Luke here, and I'm glad it's a physician writing, and perhaps he has done his postmortem on this, he's saying the rich man died and was simply buried. No angels. No angels at all. And he cried and said, Father. What did he do? He cried. Where's he crying from? Because I'm reading from verse 24, but I want you to bear in mind verse 23. Because he's crying, but where is his location now? Well, let's read it. Verse 23 says, and in hell. In where? In hell, Gehenna. He lifted up his eyes, being in torments. This is the same man who had his yacht and his Bentley and numerous houses on Fisher Islands and other islands. He's now in hell. This earthly billionaire that you saw here, this rich man, is now a beggar in hell. Can you understand what I'm saying? The word says he doesn't have any maids or slaves anymore. He's in torment. All his portfolios and bank accounts and the people who manages his accounts, they're not there. He's in hell and he's begging. This multi-billionaire is a pauper in hell. And he cried, said, Father, Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus, send the students. Send that man who was begging at my gate that I didn't pay any attention to, that I went to the Supreme Court to stop him getting help. Send him. And I can hear Abraham saying, you don't have any slaves down here. You realize that, don't you? You don't have any messengers. You had them while you was on earth, but you don't have them here now. But he's pleading, send Lazarus, that he may dip. He's not drinking fountain water anymore. That he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. I hope that all, rich and poor, take note of what happens after death. That although the brain, your emotions, and everything ceases, the soul is conscious. The soul is conscious. And this is not just a parable to teach you something. It is a reality. When a person dies, you go to one of two places. If you died in Yeshua, you go to a place called paradise. It's a waiting area in the lounge for the kingdom. And the other one goes to Gehenna, hell. Both of them are waiting for the kingdom. Their souls are alert to what is happening, but they cannot come for it. They see the future. One knows that he's coming for the second death, and the other knows that he's coming to inherit the kingdom. But they both are conscious. Sent Lazarus. But Abraham said, son, remember that thou in thy lifetime received the good thing. You lived sumptuously in Hollywood, in London, in Paris. You lived sumptuously in Delhi, in Birmingham, while the beggars around you had a hard time. Some of them did not even get Social Security. They were on the dole. And you didn't pay any attention to them, though you were loaded. You drove past, and often you would flash water on them while they were passing at the bus terminal. Remember that? Remember the size of your mansion? Or should I say mansions? Your Rolls Royce? The Ferrari? And the Lamborghini? Aston Martin? Lexus? Mercedes? You had a fleet. I have not yet mentioned the yacht and the private airplane. You had all these. And you did not at one moment ask yourself, where will I spend eternity? It never crossed your mind. You drank pink champagne. You wore crocodile skin shoes. And all your suits were built at Savile Row. That's how you lived. You did nothing for yourself because you had helpers. You had maids. You did not even know how to boil water because somebody did it for you. But we don't have that kind of a service down here in hell. Moreover, the gulf, the chasm between where you are and where we are is so wide, it's more than the cannon. You're not in Colorado now. No, you're not here. You're in hell. Wow. You live sumptuously and you enjoy the good life. And likewise, Lazarus, evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. You're getting paid for your deeds because the wages of sin is death, but the gift of Yah is eternal life. So, Mr. Fat Cat, the next time you have nothing to do, you better read Luke chapter 16, because that's yours. That's your profile. That is until you repent. Verse 26, chapter 16 of the book of Lucas. And beside all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf. And I'm not talking about the Gulf of Mexico. Where you live now in hell, waiting for the second death, the white throne judgment is a far place from the bosom of Abraham. So that they which would pass from where you are in hell, they cannot pass. They cannot pass. And guess what? You were the one who determined that gulf, because Yah had blessed you with wealth and you thought it was all yours. Did not know that was Yah's money in your hand to help the poor. Remember, he said the poor will always be with you. But you thought it was for you. What did you say your last name was? Oh, Scrooge. Oh, yes. The gulf is wide. Then he said, I pray thee, therefore, Father, that thou would ascend him to my father's house. You didn't hear me, said Abraham. He's not going anywhere. Lazarus is not your helper. You mistreated him. You paid no attention to him. You did not help him, even though you had the means to help him. The story is told, is it not, of two brothers who were very rich but very wicked. And they lived in a community where everybody knew that they were wicked. And one died. And so the other brother wanted to give his dead brother a good, what they call, sending off. So he went to the local priest and asked him, when you do the eulogy for my brother, I want you to say that he was a saint. And the priest said, your brother, everybody in this community knows what your brother was like. How could I utter those words and say he was a saint? The rich man said, the rich brother, the one who survived his brother said, I'll make it worth your cause. I will give you something. And so the priest decided that he would go along, and on the day that this man was being buried, the priest went up and he was doing the homily, and he said, that man you see down there in that coffin is a wicked, no-good scoundrel. And the brother was shocked because that's not what they agreed. Then the priest said, but compared to his brother, he's a saint. And so there are many billionaires out there who have paved their way and are paying in installment, and I mean circumstantial installment, behavioral installment, attitudinal installment for a place in hell. That's what I'm saying. And so there is hope for Lazarus. There is hope for the students who are struggling and watching the Lazarus says they go to the Supreme Court to stop them getting help while bombs are being built to kill other people. Oh, yes. Yah watches all of this. And so the rich man said, this is verse 28, for I have 5 brethren that may testify unto them, lest they also come to this place or torment. I have 5 brothers, and I don't want them to come here. So go and tell them, come on, Abraham, please. Verse 29. Abraham said unto them, they have Moses. They have who? Moshe and the prophets. Let them hear them. Moses have written and given you the law. Elijah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, all the prophets, they have spoken. Read them and then do what they say. That's what Abraham is saying. You have a Bible in your house, and when's the last time you opened it? When was the last time you practiced anything that is in it? The only thing you read these days is your statement from the bank to see how much money you have in there. You wretched man. You billionaires. It's not finished yet. So you better come with me to Revelation chapter 6. Now, the first thing I want to say is that there are 7 seals in the book of Revelation, and we're living under the 6th seal, which means there's only one last seal left. And when that seal opens, you know it's Yeshua's time of coming. Whether you believe it or not, we don't have much time. You can see that. The word said, when you see the Euphrates River drying up, you know that the harm is 200 million of them are coming from the east. It's almost the end of time. Almost. And what you're doing is, oh, you know, I'm watching Wall Street and I'm checking on my investments. Did you invest in the kingdom? Did you? What has been your contribution to the kingdom? I don't mean those little civil virtues that you hand out to someone and say you helped. Because you didn't do it from your heart, Paul says. At the time you did it, did you do it under duress? What was the condition of the heart at the time that you gave that? What was it? You see, as I indicated earlier, goodness is determined by the character of Yah. And that is manifested in his commandments. That's goodness. So he expects that anything that we do, we must do it in context of his character, love. Yah is love. If it's not done that way, it wasn't done. So, Revelation chapter 6. And join me at verse 12. The word says, and I beheld, when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. Some people refer to this earthquake as the Lisbon earthquake. And the sun became black. And I don't want you to miss this point, you know. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became blood. And the stars of heaven fell onto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Don't lose sight of that. Let's go back into history. All this that is read here, all of it happened in the area of New England in United States of America. Go back and check your history. It happened here. And the point I want you to make, which we're going to be, Yehezqel, addressing next week, is the earth. To let you know that the mention of the earth here is not just dealing with the earth as a generic term, but as a location within the earth. And this particular context here is dealing with America. Understand that. So we're looking at America under the sixth seal. Are you with me? Let's read it again for emphasis. Verse 13. And the stars of heaven fell onto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll. When it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. That sounds to me of an imminent earthquake. Do you get that feeling? That's one of the inference that could be drawn here. We're dealing with America, and we're dealing with the earth. And we're dealing with what is happening under the sixth seal. And it's telling you the mountain will disappear. And you know, I'm saying it could well be an earthquake. So huge that it rearranges cities and towns and mountains in America. That's what I'm saying here. Let's read it again. And the heavens departed as a scroll. When it is rolled together, and every mountain, how many? Every mountain and island were moved out of their places. You know, particularly in Florida, here, there are a number of islands where rich people live. It says they will be removed. It doesn't tell us where he's taken them. And the kings of the earth, the rulers of the earth, the people who are leaders in this earth. If this is a location and we're dealing with America, he says the rulers of the earth. It's in the word. And the great men and the rich men and the chief of captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man find themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountain. Did you hear me? And said to the mountains and the rocks, fallen up. They're not upsailing. They're not mountain climbing. They are speaking to rocks when they should have been speaking to the rock of all ages, Yeshua. Are you with me? Now they're now saying to these objects, these rock, fall on us. Why would a rich man who has everything that he wants be asking a rock to fall on him? Why is he communicating to stones? Hide us. You've been hiding a long, long time behind your sins, behind your wickedness, behind your cruelty. Hide. Who are you hiding from? He says, he that sitteth on the throne. But you're a ruler. And from the wrath of the Lamb. Hold on. Something must have happened. Why a lamb, a humble lamb, is now angry? For the great day of his wrath is come. And who is able to stand? Who? Mr. Uncle Sam, if you hear the word of Yah, he who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto you. Is that not right? If you have an ear, then hear. Because the word says that when he comes, he's not dealing with who is in that race, or that race, who is a Chinese or is an American or is a Jamaican or is British. He's not dealing with that kind of thing. He's dealing with sheep and goats. And he's not dealing with the goat that you mean, because you boast about being the goat, the greatest of all time. He doesn't mean that. You better come with me to Matthew. Matthew 25. And let's start at verse 31. When the Son of Man shall come, when Yeshua shall come in his glory. How is he coming? In his glory. You remember him as a little baby in a manger, and every Christmas you take him out and dust him off and put him back, and you don't remember him until it's Christmas, that pagan holiday. You don't remember him. But he says when he comes, he's grown up now, and he's coming in his glory. And all his Kodesh angels, his holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall he gather all nations. How many nations? All nations. And he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth a sheep from the goats. Did you get me? Righteous and unrighteous, not by your wealth. So he's not taking any note of the fact that Forbes' list of billionaires and how much you have. He's not dealing with that. You're either righteous or you're unrighteous. And I want you to understand this. The righteousness that you have, that makes you justified before Yah, is imputed. And the righteousness that sanctifies you is imparted. What am I saying? That which he puts in you, the imputed righteousness, must be imparted. I mean, you work that out, your salvation, in fear and in trembling. So if he puts that in you, part of that is to help other people, not all of your own. Not all of your own. So when he comes, he's not dealing with your bank account, because you are in deficit financing. You owe him a debt you cannot pay. And so he puts some on the left and some on the right. Then the king shall say unto them on his right, and come, he blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry. I was what? I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to see me. Then shall the righteous answer, saying, Yah, when saw we thee and hungered and fed thee? When did this happen? And he responded. He said, the least you did to others. You remember when Tom and Mary and June and Gloria and Joan and Ari, when they were sick and they were hungry, and you gave them something and paid for them? Oh no, you did that unto me, because they're mine. Wow. I never thought of that. That's seemingly what they're saying. And then, if you are in the goat section, when you heard that benediction, you're wondering, okay, it's my turn. And the king shall say unto those on the goat section, on the left side, depart from me. I never knew you. But you know everything. I don't know you. Because while you lived on earth in your wealth sumptuously, you never knew me, and you never confessed me before my Father, so I'm not going to confess you. You never confessed me before men, so I'm not going to confess you before my Father. Get away. In England, they say, get lost. Wow. Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire. So the wealth you were storing up is now fuel for the fire. What then, the question is asked, if a man should gain the whole world and has all this wealth on Wall Street and all the cars in the world and the big houses, what did he gain if his soul is not saved? What? For I was hungry, and ye did not give me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and he took me not in. I was naked, and you were just too stingy. And did not know when you gave to the other, you were lending to me. And if anybody lends me, I pay them more than they lent to me. Did you get that? Mr. Meany? Miss Meany? It's there in the Word. And so we want all of us to know that this world is such that Yah did not make the world for it to become ruled by market forces and that free economy. He says the poor will always be with you. You should help them. You know how many people are still sleeping on the bridges in this wealth? Right now in England, 358,370 sleeping rough. Homelessness in New York is more than 4,000 people sleeping in the streets at night. In London, 1,000 plus sleeping on the streets. United States, 2 in every 1,000 people in the United States are homeless. In the richest country in the world, full of billionaires. And they're just hoarding it. Your day is coming. Your day is coming. In California and New York alone, you have more than 100 billionaires in those 2 states. And Yah wants you to know that you have a day coming. You have a day. The word says in Exodus 22 and verse 25, if you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not treat it like a business deal. Don't do that. Don't do it. Charge no interest. Do not change a fellow Israelite interest, whether or money or food or anything else that may earn interest. Deuteronomy 23:19. Psalm 37:21, the wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. He doesn't give it for tax discount. He gives it from his heart. Did you hear that? And so Yah wants you to know that the money that you think is yours, the wealth that he blessed you with, was to see how you would use and appropriate his resources. May we take this and understand what the good teacher is saying, what he is trying to teach us, that there are needs to be met, needs to be met. And so these millionaires and billionaires, they have a day coming. And I want you to know that wealth is relative. So it's not just the billionaires or the millionaires. It's you who can do good wherever you are, and do so that when you give, you don't give grudgingly, but you give with a condition that pleases Yah. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.